This is Dr. Tina Cannon from Chattanooga State Community College, and in this segment we want to use the TI calculator to find the mean and the standard deviation of a frequency distribution. We are going to use our course compass and go to the calculator instruction button, go to Unit 1, and the handout that says mean and standard deviation of a frequency distribution. We're going to use this. We want to take a frequency distribution. Now, we have been working, if you've watched any of the previous clips, we've been using a set of values. It's the weights of pitchers for the Atlanta Braves ball team, and we have a frequency distribution, and what I want to do is calculate the mean and the standard deviation given a frequency distribution. Now, I have the set of data, and I could actually find the actual mean and standard deviation from the set of values, but what I want to do is show you, if they just give you a frequency distribution, how you can estimate a mean and standard deviation. So I want to call up my calculator, and we need to place place values into our calculator. Now, to be able to find the mean and standard deviation, you first have to calculate the class midpoint. So I want to go through this in our handout. Let me pull this down. Remember, to find the class midpoints, you add your high plus the low in the class and divide it by 2. And we'll take out our calculator, so we'll do 179 plus 170, and we can push enter, divide by 2. And so we have a class midpoint of 174.5, and you can see this in the handout, 174.5. We need all of the class midpoints. Instead of having to add each of these and divide by 2, I want to find the class width first. So the class width is the difference in my classes. Well, if I look at this, 180 minus 170, it's a difference of 10. So if I take that and I add it to 174.5, and I just do plus 10, that should be the midpoint of this next class. If I add 10 more, that should be the midpoint of the next one. So we can see the pattern, 174.5, 184, all the way down. These values, now we have this listed so that you can see it. These values need to be placed into your calculator. And so after you find all your class midpoints, we want to take the calculator, and notice we want to place the class midpoints in list 1 and your frequencies in list 2. So let's take the calculator. Let me go back to my frequency table so I can see it, to see how far I need to go. So I'm going to call up the calculator. Now we're going to go to Stat, push enter. I need to clear out this list, so I'm going to move to L1, push clear, and push enter. Okay, we want to place our class midpoints, let me move this over, in list 1. Now remember, our first class midpoint was 174.5. And we want to do this for each one of them. And I messed up. Let's try again. 174.5. And we need to type all these in for each of these classes. So let me finish this right quick. And so you do this on your calculator. And we need to go all the way down. We have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So 194, 204.5. And what do we have? 214.5. And that's in between this class, plus 224.5, and I think that would be that one. So we have the last one, we have 134.5. So you place your class midpoints in list 1. Okay, now we place our frequencies in list 2. I just move the arrow key over, we put those in, 3, 3, 3, and then we have what, 6, 0, 3, and 4. Okay, now what we're trying to do is find the mean and standard deviation of a frequency table or frequency distribution. So I want to scroll down and show you the next steps. So we have those placed into our calculator, and your screen should look like this. So we can see we have all of our values in here, and I made a mistake and I can see it right there. It's supposed to be 234.5, so be sure to put the right number in there. Okay, and I looked that, I should scroll down and check, but there we have those. Okay, now to calculate the mean and standard deviation, I want you to notice the steps, what it says. It says we have to push STAT, S-T-A-T. Again, we have used this all throughout the course, and you will continue to use it. You're going to move to calculate. Notice we've got one variable statistics, but here's where it's different. We're going to push enter. And in these, when you are using the class midpoints and the frequencies, what you're doing is actually taking, if you was doing these by hand, you would multiply each one of those together, okay, and do an average. You'd do a mean of each one of those, the average of those, okay, and then put them together. Or we would multiply them and then divide by how many we have is how we'd go about doing that. So what happens is we have to tell the calculator to use list 1 and list 2. So we're going to push second and the number 1. The comma is above 7, and then second and the number 2, and we're going to push enter. And what happens is this will give you the mean and the standard deviation. Now, if we go back and we look at one of our previous problems, I'm thinking that the actual mean was 101 point something, and I think the standard deviation was 19.9. So you can see this doesn't give you an exact mean and standard deviation because it's rounding. If you think about this, we're just doing an estimate of each value because we didn't. When you're given a frequency distribution, you don't have the exact values. So notice what happens. The mean of the frequency is approximately 204.5. The standard deviation is 20.7. We're using this one. Now notice in this, I went ahead and calculated the others to see how close of an answer you get. Okay, you could actually take the values that we had at the very top. If you go back to the very beginning of your handout, take the values that we have right here. We could take those and place them in the calculator in list 1 and list 2, and we could do one variable stats and push enter. And when we did, notice that is the actual mean and this is the actual standard deviation. So we're fairly close. So you notice that you are doing an approximation when you find the mean and standard deviation of a frequency distribution. And it's because we don't know all the exact values. We just know there were 3 in this middle. So we're approximating by finding the midpoint. So that's how you find the mean and standard deviation of a frequency distribution.